Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Copilot Learning Hub. Today, we've got a very special topic because all of you have been asking us about it, the Azure Copilot. But I'm not going to tell you how the Azure Copilot works. Instead, I phoned a friend and have Pierre Roman join us and explain how does the Azure Copilot work, what does it do, and more importantly, what can it do for you? Hi, Pierre. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Donna. How are you?
Awesome. So, tell us about Azure Copilot. This is something you are extremely familiar with, and most people in the world are not.
Yes, so Azure Copilot, which, by the way, is still in preview, so work is still being done on it. It's a Copilot where you get to ask it general purpose questions about your IT environment. So your cloud environment, your hybrid environment, if it's connected to the cloud, basically anything that is comprised or encompassed in your Azure Graph information. So Copilot enables you to tap into that knowledge and tap into all of the documentation about Azure. Well, that's what it does. It answers your questions and helps you do tasks.
Okay, I love that because there are a lot of Azure services out there. I don't even know how many. I think there's more Azure services than there are Copilot experiences personally. And it's hard to find them. And it's also hard to find very specifically, how do you do this very particular thing? I was looking for how do you build an AI agent with orchestration the other day. And I actually stumbled into the Azure Copilot and I thought it was very useful.
Yep.
So that was very cool. Okay, so you've obviously been using this for a while. Can you show us some of the things that you found very useful for your work?
Yes, absolutely. So when we're looking at Copilot, or if I'm looking at the portal right now, it's right there, right in the top. Yep. So Copilot.
Perfect.
So I've got my information about all the subscriptions that I have. And I have to say, don't be worried about exposing things that you're not supposed to see.
Okay.
Copilot is built on top of the governance, the policies, the access controls, everything that you've already set. So if I say, show me all the resources, it's only going to show me the resources that I have access to. That's number one. Number two is that when you start, it gives you a set of suggested prompts because we're all this is new. It's actually still in preview. So what can you do for it? So it'll ask you, can I design? Can I operate? Can I optimize, troubleshoot, and so on? But for our audience, like the IT professionals and the infrastructure people, the operations people, there are very specific things or specific skills that these people normally have to do on a regular basis. So if I go here and say, for example, ask a question that a lot of IT professionals would ask is, how many virtual machines do I have? So I go here, I ask my question or my prompt, and while this is thinking, just realize that context is king when you're writing prompts. The more information you can give Copilot, the more precise the information that it'll bring you back. So in this case, I said, how many virtual machines do I have? But I didn't specify a subscription. I didn't specify a resource group. I just say, how many do I have? So right now it's going through all of my subscriptions. It shows me what the custom query graph query would be. So I can run it. I can run it separately, or I can just hit the run button. And right now it just tells me that I have 22 virtual machines across the selected subscription. And in this case, it's basically all the subscriptions that I have currently in context in the portal. It will also give me suggested prompts based on what I already asked it. So what are the names of the virtual machines, the status, and so on. So I can keep going and say, well, how do those 22, how many are actually running? Because typically you'd have to go into the portal, look at all the virtual machine, or build a PowerShell script or a CLI script, or go to the shell and write down that query and then let it run. But in this case, I'm just going to ask it how many. And again, it shows me the graph, the custom query, and then goes into there and figures out what I need to do first, because there's behind the LLM, behind the Copilot that understands human language, it tries to define what the intent of what you're trying to do. And based on that intent, will try to figure out the skill that it needs to accomplish this. So if it's alert and monitoring, it's one set of skills. If it's just graph queries, it'll do that. If it doesn't know anything like that, or if you're asking a general question, it'll default to documentation. So in this case, I have my 22 machines are currently running and in the selected subscriptions, and they are the first 5 in the list. So I've got 5 machines. Again, it gives me more information in terms of what do you want to do with these? What are the specs of those machines? How can I stop these machines? And I can just say, for example, show me the memory usage for a specific server or one of the ones that is listed here. So it goes there. It starts working on it, trying to determine what I want to do. And in this case, we'll eventually figure out that, oh, you're trying to figure out metrics definition. So it uses the Azure Monitor metrics skill, gives me some information about it. And while I'm reading the information, it keeps working in the background, picking up the information and the details that I asked. It fetches that information and will pop it up on screen for me.
What I like about this is it takes it one step beyond just giving you the answer. It's saying, I think this is what Pierre is trying to do. Let me give him the next few steps. And I really like those follow-up prompts down there at the bottom that says, okay, now do you want to see which ones are running? Now do you want to see which ones have been running a long time, etc. So I think that's really clever because it's taking you through a workflow. It's not just question and answer retrieval, but it's actually trying to guide you through some sort of a flow. So if you're not an Azure expert like you kind of have almost I don't want to say wizard, but it's more of a guide through, okay, once you understand what machines you've got running, you probably want to figure out which are long running, which of these are using the most memory, the most, usage, et cetera, and maybe you want to wind one down or load balance or whatever it is that you'd want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's very cool.
Plus, if you've noticed, I've not once moved anywhere from the home screen of the portal.
Right.
So all of this I could have done manually, but it is literally the Copilot. It's helping me get to the destination I'm trying to get to.
I love that.
And in this case, it showed me the metrics, but it says, do you want to open it into the Metrics Explorer, where if I want to get more metrics out of it, I can add them in here. This is really, really cool. So we've asked a lot of questions about what my environment looks like. But I can also say, so what's the status, which we've already kind of checked out. But I could also say, restart that VM. So now it goes into action mode. This is not an actual thing. This is just what's happening in my head. It determines what I'm trying to do. So it's like, oh, okay, so you're trying to actually affect this. All right, so I've confirmed that you want to restart this machine. Yep, this is the one you want. Yes. And then say yes, no, or reset my selection. If I reset the selection, it gives me a resource selector that I can pick a different machine if I want to and reset it. So in this case, I'm just going to say yes, and it actually starts the reset process. So if I go home right now and go to the status of this machine, it's currently it's running now, but it's being restarted as we speak.
Okay, what I like is it's doing this little automation for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's literally executing your intent.
Yeah. So once you get information on what you're supposed to be doing, this Copilot can, in many instances, actually do the thing for you if you tell it to.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
And if it doesn't understand what you're trying to do, it will kind of like guide you or show you some documentation and say, I think this is what you're trying to accomplish. Here's some information, and here are the links of our documentation where you can get more information. Because you know as well as I do that trying to find this very specific like command or a very specific set of information out of the learn.microsoft.com, where all of our documentation is set, it's sometimes not easy because there's so much of it.
Right. No, that's very true, because finding the right page in our Learn docs is challenging. But I did see this one drops you directly to that page. It says, do you want to open this one? I was looking up the responsible AI guidelines, and it took me directly to the page. And I was pretty happy about that. That was great.
Yep. So right now it started. It tells me that it's actually started. I can refresh that and make sure, but let's move on. One of the things that also Copilot can do, and let's start a new chat. Because this Copilot, like every Copilot, has kind of got a limit of how many prompts you can provide in succession, and where it actually retains the context of what it was doing before. So let's start a new one just to make sure that we don't hit that limit. For operations, one of the things that's very important is, because IT professionals, operations folks, they have a different focus, let's say, than developers or management. Their purpose is to keep the lights on, don't break anything, troubleshoot when things go wrong, and let's figure out the health of our environment. So how can Copilot for Azure or Azure Copilot help in those situations? Well, let's say it's been a long weekend. You've been out in a golf course and so on, and you come back on Monday morning. It's easy for us to go in there and say, so how many critical alerts have been fired in the last 24 hours? Because maybe you don't get all the alerts based on, does the alert go to the database group? Does the alert go to the security group? Does the alert go to the infrastructure group? So you can just say, how many critical alerts in the last 24 hours? And it will actually gives me, there's been 5 active alerts in 3 resources with Sev zeros, so critical, in the past 1 day. So I can go and then drill into what that one is. So see what the rule was and where it actually fired, and get the information very, very quickly on those alerts, and then be able to act on it immediately. But typically in this particular case, if I look, let's say, CPU load, it brings me to it, and then will give me the history and everything. So it just helps me navigate all of the information that's in the portal, all of the metrics, all of the alerts that we've already set. So you could have set that in any of the panes in Azure Monitor, in the pane of the resource itself with alerts and monitoring. This is just an easy way for me to ask Azure Copilot, like, show them to me and explain to me how that's going to work. What action should I take? So if there is a rule on that one that says, well, we've spun up this alert because your CPU got pinned, then according to our documentation, according to the knowledge that we have that's built into the LLM, what action should I take? And then it'll go out and get the information I need and then provide it to me. Because Azure Copilot is not just about operation and alert and monitoring and stuff like that. There's also lots of information that it can provide you in terms of learning and upskilling, in terms of financial operations and so on. There's lots of different information in there. So while we were talking, it came back and said, okay, so it understands my concern about the CPU loaded alert rule. And it says, okay, please verify these rules are enabled, check the processing, verify whether the alert look at the history tab of your alert. Like, it gives you hints and procedures and like to do. So that you can address those problems in the future.
I love that you've got yourself a handy little assistant, actually. Because this is
I guess that's why they call it a Copilot.
Yeah, because this is not just a fancy FAQ page or a place where, you know, you just have all of your resources in one and then you have to go hunt and peck. It actually is guided directions through these very specific tasks that you're trying to do. Like, hey, I've got an alert. What should I do about it? It kind of guides you through that, through the various resources that are already there in the Azure portal, they're just very, very hard to find unless you know what you're looking for.
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, Pierre, this was very enlightening for me. I learned a whole bunch of new tricks. So we're going to ask you to come back and share with us more learning, upskilling, and of course, FinOps, which everybody cares about. Like, how much money am I spending? So thank you so much for being with us today. And to everyone else, tune in next time for Copilot Learning Hub.